went to Washington State, and I've like been around a lot of broadcasters, and they talk about that journey going through the minor leagues and how it's more than just broadcasting. I feel like you got to also help out with the team and all that. Can you just talk about your grind to the major leagues and just give some advice to maybe any up and coming broadcasters that want to get to your position? What's the journey like?
Absolutely. It was a long 6 years, although 6 years is way shorter than I would have ever imagined, man. Like I was prepared to spend as much time as I had to in the minors to get to the majors. If that meant 10 years or 20 years, I didn't really ever have an end date on it, but I was really determined to hopefully get to the majors one day. But my journey was really unconventional in some ways. I did not broadcast in college. I was a history major. I had no idea that radio broadcasting was something that I ever wanted to do until honestly a month before I graduated college. And at that point, it was a little late. And so I graduated with a history degree. I moved in with my parents, which was awesome. And I got a retail job and I went to a trade school in St. Louis called the Broadcast Center, which is like, you go to a trade school to learn how to be a carpenter. I went to a trade school to learn how to be a broadcaster. And it was a 9-month program, worked at your own pace. And it was a school for DJs primarily. Like there was no play by play at all. It was all radio production. So making commercials, voicing commercials, all the gear all the computer software you use for that, and DJing. Basically, there's a little bit of learning how to read and write the news for radio.
Mm.
But so I did that for 9 months while working a retail job, and my advisor really encouraged me to audition or make a demo for an independent league baseball team that had a play-by-play internship available right around the time I was scheduled to graduate. And believe it or not, when I went to the Broadcast Center, my heart was set on being a sports talk show host. Like I had no intention of play-by-play. I hadn't even thought of it. And my advisor, who I liked very much, was just banging me over the head like every week. Like, man, you gotta go make a demo. Just try this out. Make a demo. Just try play-by-play and just apply for the job. And even if by a miracle you get it, you can always say no. And so from the Broadcast Center, I got a tape deck and a stick microphone. And I went back to my alma mater that I just graduated from in college, which is a little D3 school in Illinois. And on the weekends, they would have men's and women's basketball doubleheaders. And so I called 2 basketball games on back-to-back weekends, 4 games total, into this tape deck. And the Gateway Grizzlies, the name of the independent league baseball team that was trying to find an intern, all they wanted were 5 minutes of uninterrupted play-by-play. Like that was the demo they wanted. It took me 4 college basketball games to get 5 minutes of uninterrupted play-by-play that weren't utterly horrific. What I eventually sent them was the farthest thing from good, but it was not like a nuclear test site, which is what most of my play-by-play was. I mean, I'd never done it. I had no idea what was going on. I was just doing what I heard guys on TV and the radio do. And so another great thing was like there was no way I was going to take the time to memorize the names and numbers of the players. I mean, give me a break, man. I'm just making this stupid demo. I'm not going to take this job. I'm not even going to get this job. And so the visiting team, like I knew all the players from my team because I knew a lot of these kids. I was just in school 6 months ago. But all the names for the visiting teams, I just made up. And so like my wife's maiden name is Harmon. We were dating at the time. And so like the best player on every team was always Harmon.
Oh my God.
And like the other names of the players were like buddies that I'd seen that day coming back on campus. And so like I was like my identification skills were like a 10 out of 10 because I just made it all up. And I'm like, whoever's listening to this tape, they're not going to look this game up. They don't know. And so I sent this cassette. I mailed a cassette tape to the Gateway Grizzlies in 2007. And I mean, I'm convinced to this day, and you can never not convince me, that I was the only person who applied for this job. Like, for real. They called me. They called me in for an in-person interview, and they offered me the job right there. And I was I'm like, what? And I was becoming more and more aware how hard it was to find a sports talk show host job. Like this is really hard. And like there's no way I was gonna get one in St. Louis. It's not a massive market, but it's not a small market by any means. And I'm a Yahoo, they're not gonna let me on the air. And so thinking about like going to be a talk show host in like some podunk town in Michigan, it's like I don't know anything about the Lions or the Wolverines or the Red Wings or the Tigers. Like I just have the most basic surface level knowledge of any of those. Like they're not gonna let me on the air. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, this actually might be that's the best I can do. and so they said they would pay me $70 a month to be the intern for the Gateway Grizzlies. And I was utterly floored that they were gonna pay me even $1. I'm like, did you hear my demo? And so they paid me $70 a month, which is like the most comical amount of money for any job. And I called 2 innings a night for home games only. I didn't travel when the team was on the road. Like I did nothing. I worked a retail job still, and I lived with my parents. And that's how I got started. And I was so bad. I mean, I was so bad. I remember my first home run call. I had no idea what to say. I'd never called a home run before. And I'm on live radio of actual professional baseball. And I remember the home run was like close to a no doubter. And I was like, here's the pitch. And you hear the crack of the bat. And then you could tell immediately like, oh my gosh, this thing's going to fly over the fence. And I got so tongue tied. I just watched. And then once it went over the wall, I was like, it's a home run. I had no idea what to say.
Well,
it was so bad.
Goldie, from a fan's perspective, I was about to say earlier that one of my favorite things about listening to you is when a home run is hit, you're all about it. You're jumping out. It's like sounds like you're out of your seat.
It sounds like you kind of turned the tables on your reaction to a home run, because when a home run is even in a hint, I mean, the voice, it rises, the tone, it rises, it's going up. So at the very least, you've been able to absolutely master that initial kind of
man, it's come
reaction.
It's come along.
Right?
I had another game that season where, keep in mind, there were no broadcast booths. It was one huge open air press box. So like our broadcast of the voice of the Grizzlies, Joe, who's fantastic, he and I sat on one end of the broadcast of the press box, and then the visiting radio sat all the way at the other end. And like I sat next to the official scorer. Like there was no privacy. Like people could hear our calls, for better or worse. And by the time I got on the air for the first time one night in like the 6th inning, we were losing like 14-0, man. And I was so tuned out of that game. It was so boring and awful. And this game's a dog, and just end it, shoot it in the head now, right? And we had this little second baseman, like tiny, like he couldn't hit a home run if he tried. And he hit a fly ball to center field, and he really tagged it. And I just like lost my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, like this, I'm thinking like, this is a home run. Like he just hit a home run. This is incredible. Not understanding that even if he had hit a home run, man, like who cares? It's 14-1. Like doesn't matter.
Right.
And I just start like getting out of my seat, like ecstatic, like huge call. Dude, it was caught like 10 feet in front of the warning track. Like I've called it a home run. Like I've said it's gone. And then like everybody in the press box is like turning their head and looking at me like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And so I'm like joking, but I'm not joking, but I'm definitely joking. I blame the lights. I'm like, oh man, I lost that one in the lights somehow. And the worst part was, I got so loud on this home run call that the broadcaster for the other team on the other side of the press box heard me and started making fun of me on his broadcast. I mean, amazing.
No
Incredible.
way.
So like that was Goldsmith 1.0, the broadcaster, man. It's a miracle that I ever got out of Gateway Grizzlies. But the first 3 years were really hard. I was an intern at 3 different teams in 3 different states in 3 different years. I went from indie ball to the Cape League. So I went from $70 a month to pro bono, did not get paid in the Cape. I got a landscaping job on Craigslist. I lived with now my wife, at the time my girlfriend. Her grandmother lived on the Cape. I slept on her couch. I did my prep at the local Yarmouth Dentist Library, and we called our games over Skype. I mean, it was like the most jerry-rigged by hook and crook. I drove from St. Louis to Cape Cod and went in massive debt so I could call games over Skype. But wow. I needed innings, right? I mean, listen to me. I needed innings. And then in 2009, my 3rd year, I was an intern for the Red Sox AA team in Maine. And it was like the best summer of my life, man. I had an incredible broadcast partner, the voice of the Sea Dogs, named Mike Antonellis, who took me under his wing and taught me so much. And it was like, I felt like I was in the big leagues. Like I was in a AA ballpark around like prospects. Like I'd never been around prospects before. And it was incredible. Like I remember like every day I'm like, this is my big leagues, which is one of my biggest takeaways from the minors, is that it doesn't matter where you are. When you climb up a level, man, that's your big leagues. Like when I took the mic the first time in Cape Cod and we literally dialed in over Skype and we heard the beep boop, beep boop, beep boop, beep boop connected. And like, that's when I started talking. Like that was the first time I was ever a lead guy. And that was my big leagues. Yeah. Like I felt like, man, this is like, I've got responsibility right now. Yeah. And if I had not, after my season in 2009, Heather and I had been dating. Like this is when like life takes over. We've been dating for like 4 years at that point, and we were ready to get married. And I had went into a lot of debt, driving all over the country, making no money, trying to survive and chase a dream. And I told her that if I did not get a full-time play-by-play job that off season going into the 2010 season, that I'd give it up. Like I had a backup plan for an actual career. I was going to be an appliance salesman, which I had done while in broadcasting school and actually enjoyed it. My name tag said Appliance Aaron, and we still have it to this day.
Yes.
That's what I was gonna do. Like I could make way better money than I made calling baseball. I mean, I lost money calling baseball, and we could get married and start an actual life together. And at the time, that winter going into 2010, I was an assistant JV basketball coach, and I was a professional dog walker, which was a job that I got on Craigslist. And I was walking a dog on a really cold winter day in St. Louis when I got a phone call saying that the Frisco Rough Riders wanted to hire me to be their lead broadcaster and their PR guy, full-time job. And I mean, I was like, I could not believe it.
That's
I could not believe it.
That's amazing.
I popped the question to Heather, like, I don't know, weeks later. I moved out to Dallas. We got married 6 months later. She moved out to Dallas after she wrapped up her job. We were in Dallas for 2 years. And I remember saying to Heather, like, hey, you've been with me from the start of all this, from like the Gateway Grizzlies and me not knowing how to call a home run to right now. And I said, we're going to be here in AA for probably like 10 years. I said, are you ready for that? And she's the greatest. And she's like, yes, I can do 10 years here. And I said, okay, because then I'm going to get a AAA job and we're going to be there for like 10 or 15 years. I said, it's going to I said, if this thing ever pans out, like I remember this conversation with her over dinner one night. If this thing pans out, we're talking like best case scenario, probably like 20 years until we're in the big leagues.
Wow.
And like, we're not going to like, Heather was always the breadwinner. And while I was in the minors, I mean, you just don't make much money. And obviously you're gone a lot. You're on the bus. The travel stinks. She's without a husband for 6 months out of the year. Cause even when we're home, I got to be at the ballpark, typing up game notes and press releases and doing all that stuff. And she said, yeah, I can do that. Yep. And we were in Dallas for 2 years. And then the Pawtucket Red Sox job opened up, which is like the holy grail of minor league broadcasting. It's hard to explain why, other than they've just hired good people. But the Paw Sox have had, I don't know what the updated number is, but like 8, maybe 10 guys go from Pawtucket to the big leagues. They've actually had 2 guys go from Pawtucket to the NFL for the local NFL radio booths. And my wife is from Boston. And so when the Paw Sox job opened up, it was like, well, I have to apply for this for like 2 very obvious reasons. And so, but I knew I wasn't going to get it. And I applied. And as it turned out, the winter meetings that year were in Dallas, where we lived, which was just like this incredible, all the worlds aligning. So I interviewed for the job in person in Dallas, and like knocked me over with a feather when they called and said that they wanted to hire me. I could not believe it. And so we packed up and we moved to Rhode Island after 2 years in Dallas. And after my first year in Pawtucket, which was, again, that was my big leagues. That was for sure my big leagues. Like, I was over the moon. Like, this is the coolest, man. Like, they had like a 10 station radio network in like 3 different states. Like, it was a big deal in minor league baseball to be the voice of the Paw Sox. And after that season, my first year in 2012, the Mariners opened up. And I was like, well, there's no way I'm getting this job. But when you're a AAA broadcaster, I mean, you apply for big league jobs because on paper, you're one notch below. In reality, you're like 10,000 leagues under the sea. But in reality, you know, on paper, you're one notch below. So I sent my stuff in, and I remember, you know, the Mariners, you know, they get like, who knows how many guys applying for this thing, right? Like well over 100, of course. And I knew I had no chance. I'd only been a league guy for 3 years. 3 years I've been a league guy. I've been in the minors for 6. And I sent my CD in and all the normal material. And I get an email from them a couple of weeks later. And the email said, in a much more eloquent way, "Dear Aaron, we have made 2 piles. A pile of broadcasters who we think stink, and a pile of broadcasters who we think don't stink. Congratulations, you've made the pile that doesn't stink.
Outstanding.
We'll be in touch. We'll be in touch when the next round begins." And I was like, "What? Are you kidding me? A major league team thinks that I don't stink?" Like, Heather and I got in the car that night, man. We went out to Applebee's. We got 2 for $20.
Yes.
Like, we both got a drink. Like, we both got like an iced tea instead of water. I mean, like, we got double dessert. I mean, like, for my money, they basically just hired me, even though they weren't even close to hiring me. But a big league team thought that I wasn't like the worst. I never gotten that kind of feedback from obviously a major league team. I never applied to a big league job before.
Yeah.
And so I was on top of the world. I still knew I wasn't going to get the job, but it was like, it made me feel so incredible. And then I got another email saying, "We want to talk to you on the phone." And I was like, "What? No, come on, man." And we talked on the phone. And then I got an email saying, "We want to meet you in person. When can you fly out to Seattle?" And at that point, it's like, oh man, things are real. Like, this is, man, I might actually have a shot at this.
Right.
And that's when I started to get really nervous. And I will forever be indebted a gentleman named Randy Adamek, who is now like semi-retired. He's been with the Mariners since almost day one with the club. And he's one of the most well-respected PR men in baseball. Randy was my boss for my first probably like 5 years with the Mariners. He's the one who hired me. And it's a crazy life thing, man. It just goes to show you, like, it was more than just Randy who made the decision, obviously, but Randy was like the point guy. But like, Randy changed my life. And we changed the life for my wife, for now my kids. We didn't have any kids at the time. Now we have 3. I mean, like, if they didn't say yes to me, there's like almost a 100% chance that I'm still in the minors. It seems like, oh, if you get a big league job, then that means that you get a big league job the next year or the year after that. If one guy would hire you, then they'd all hire you. No, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, if 8 teams opened up that year, 8 different guys could have been hired, and none of the 8 teams might have wanted the same guy. It's like, which do you like better, strawberry or chocolate, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so much personal preference and the vibe you get from somebody. And I mean, we love Seattle. We've started a family there. We, purchased a home there. We got kids in school. Like I'm an Alaska MVP 75 gold member now.
Yes, sir.
Like I just, like, I get really emotional thinking about it, because we would almost certainly still be in Pawtucket and just scraping by calling AAA baseball, which AAA baseball is incredible, man. Like, you get to still live out a dream. There are a million men and women who would give anything to call AAA baseball, but I can tell you it's nothing like calling Major League Baseball and connecting with the fan base and connecting with the city and all the obvious things that go along with that. So Randy, the Mariners changed our life, and we'll never forget that.